With MailChimp, you get a whole lot more than a URL. You get an all-in-one marketing platform to help drive sales. That means you can connect your data to make more informed, smarter decisions, and you get powerful automation tools like our Customer Journey Builder to ensure you never miss an opportunity to turn shoppers into loyal customers. So if you're ready to integrate your marketing and boost sales, get started today at MailChimp.com/smartmarketing. MailChimp, built for growing businesses.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Erik.
And I'm Dave.
Welcome to Adventures in Collecting,
where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hi.
We're back, Dave. We are back, and we're, you know what? We're just gonna keep the guest train a rolling. We have another guest.
No more leads.
Yeah, no more leads.
No more burying them.
I wonder if now, like, this is an actual question, Dave. Do you think there will ever be another episode where it's just you and I again? Like, I feel like it's like a thing of the past at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we may have a comeback episode at some point, but yeah, I'm gonna put a solid prediction on it'll be a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. So today, Dave, we are headed back to our friends over at Hasbro. The Marvel Legends team there has quite a tall task on the day-to-day. Chief among them is cranking out figures to keep MCU, comic book, and cartoon fans happy with a steady flow of characters to collect. Joining us today on the pod is a member of the Big Three and is either a wizard, android, or alien. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, Hasbro Senior Manager, Global Brand Development and Marketing for Marvel, Ryan Ting.
Hey, Erik and Dave. Thanks for having me. Can't wait to chat it up with you.
So, I mean, I know this has come up multiple times. Do you think you are the wizard, android, or alien?
So we were getting ready to do our very first Fan First Friday after that, the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I just kind of threw that in at the very end because I was like, oh, there's three things and there's three of us. So I'm glad it's become a thing. I've kind of forced it. I think it's more fun to let the fans decide. I like hearing the different arguments for how we could all be one of the three. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
You know, I think I go back and forth between you and Dan, which one is the android and which one is the alien, because Dwight is certainly the wizard. Like, he is
okay.
He is definitely the wizard. I mean, he's got the he's got the castle drapes behind him at most times. You know, he's the wizard. He's definitely
or he's in the dungeon basement with his Captain America shields.
Yes, and his
wall. Yep.
and he can conjure weapons at his will. He had those hook swords the one time. He's definitely the wizard.
Okay, that makes sense.
But in terms of android or alien, you and Dan both have qualities that I think could factor into either one of those distinctive categories.
Yeah, I'll take it. That makes sense.
So before we jump into everything, the first question we ask all of our guests is, tell us a little bit about what you are currently collecting.
All right. So what am I currently collecting? Well, recently I backed the WWE New Generation Ring crowdfund, just kind of out of principle. We can talk more about it. I'm a big wrestling fan for growing up, as a kid. I kind of casually follow it now. Don't really have too many wrestling figures, but I thought that this was the chance to start a bigger collection. You need a place to display them all. So I backed that. Those guys, Steve, Bill, Rob, that whole team, we know them a little bit. We see them at cons over the years. We chatted up on social. Those guys did an amazing job with the campaign, just from a marketing perspective, which I was paying particular attention to. So congratulations to them for their success. But I definitely backed that. Got the early bird special, the Macho Man package. That was number one. Recently, I got this week an email from Super 7 that the Wave 3, I believe it is, right? Yeah, Wave 3, the TMNT Ultimates is shipping. I should be getting mine this weekend. So that's a line that I'm pretty much a completist on. I am a completist on, is the TMNT Ultimates. So I've gotten everything, pre-ordered every figure or received every figure thus far. It's just easier for me to keep up with. I do love the NECA movie Turtles stuff, so I have most of those. The NECA animated things are a little harder for me to keep up on, but I did get, like the Android Krang body, and I have the first couple of 2-packs that came out a few years ago. So I do love Ninja Turtles a lot. I go way back with the brand on that one. And then lastly, what's the last thing I was going to talk about? Oh, friends of Hasbro, Transformers. So I have a pretty decent Transformers collection as well. And the thing that has just really appealed to me recently is their exclusive headmasters, kind of in the old school packaging. For some reason, that just really struck a chord with me. I know the tooling isn't exactly the old figures. It's kind of the more modern figures, but in that retro packaging. And I feel like I wanted them as a kid and maybe didn't get them. So now this is my chance to have them all looking pretty, mint on card, mint in pack on the shelf. I'm staring at a bunch right now. I really love those.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen a lot of your collection stuff on social media, and of course behind you when you do the live streams. But I don't think I've heard you talk about Transformers. I think that's a new one for me.
Yeah. So I mean, as a child of the late '80s, I played with a lot of these brands that we all did, from Transformers to GI Joe, Star Wars. I had a little He-Man back in the day, but what has really followed me as an adult collector definitely is Marvel first and foremost, but then also Ninja Turtles and Transformers. Those are probably my big three collecting brands, if we wanted to say. But I'll dabble in some other stuff too.
Yeah, and the definitely the ring was a big one for even us here. Um, I mean that for me was just one of the coolest things that's come out for a while. So you've been in the toy industry for nearly 10 years now. Tell us a little bit about your history and how you found your way to Hasbro.
Yeah, so I'll try to make this not too long. It's hard to believe it's almost been 10 years, but I was in business school out at USC in Los Angeles and was looking for summer internships, and Mattel was right down the road. And I have been a lifelong toy collector and enthusiast, so I thought, hey, that would actually be cool to do marketing, which is what I wanted to do coming out of business school for an industry that I was so personally affecting. So I looked into some things around there. Ended up not getting that internship I had my heart set on at Mattel for that summer, which was heartbreaking, but in the long run, I think worked out for the best. It allowed me to get some other experiences at some other toy companies. So I ended up interning for Leapfrog, which is kind of a children's and developmental toy company for the really young ones. And then I did a little stint at Spin Master too, which was also located out in LA. And was fortunate that after graduation there was an opportunity through some of the networking, some of the people I had met at those previous companies, for an in at Hasbro. And they said, we have a associate brand marketing position on the Monopoly brand. Are you interested in hearing more? And Monopoly is huge. We all played it, growing up, and I was definitely interested. I flew out to interview, and it was a whirlwind. And we actually, moved back to the East Coast very quickly after I was done with my business school program, and I started in June 2013 on Monopoly. Spent a couple of years there just kind of learning Hasbro, learning the industry, working on a great, very popular, the number one family gaming brand. And then through some conversations and relationships I had built up in those couple of years, there was an opening on the Marvel team in 2015. So it was right about the time that the Avengers Age of Ultron was about to hit theaters. So I was fortunate to latch on and meet Dwight and the crew and Ben and everyone that we talk about all the time, and just kind of just assimilate right away into that, and got to work on the 2016 line, which was already in development at the time. That was the Captain America Civil War, and and I think Ant-Man, I want to say. And then it's been a whirlwind ever since. I've been fortunate to be continuing and doing what I'm doing on the Marvel Legends brand in terms of product development and marketing. The business has grown nicely over the years. You can see we're putting out more items than ever, it seems, almost every year, and it's all kind of. I understand how lucky I am to have that opportunity, because the Legends business and the MCU was all kind of peaking around that time, and the fans have been great in supporting the line, and it just allows us to do more. So I'm loving where we're at. We've got Dan Yoon joined the team a couple years ago and has really hit his stride. And we are the big three, as you talked about. And that's just the three of us who are on the camera, but it's really a greater team effort of everyone from engineering, packaging, um, you know, back in Rhode Island here.
Yeah, we've made the joke several times, with guests in the past that Hasbro kind of has this dream team situation going on over there between the different brands, whether it's what's going on for GI Joe or Transformers or or like the Marvel Legends stuff. What I'm always curious about when we talk to people who've kind of been in the toy industry for a while and have kind of had these touch points with other brands, do the experiences you had at like something like Leapfrog and something like Monopoly that are very different from what you're doing now, end result wise, do any of those prior touch points inform any of the decisions, any of the kind of thought process that you have now?
Probably not in a very overt, direct way. Um, my internship experiences was basically just a way for me to get a sneak peek into how things work. I had no idea like what a project manager was. When I was at Spin Master. So when I went to go talk with the project manager there, yeah, I was learning a lot. I think for Hasbro specifically, working on Monopoly, which is a franchise brand, as the company likes to term them, you get a lot of visibility into what's possible from a marketing perspective because they have a lot of resources and it's a very high visibility brand. So that probably helped a little bit in terms of working on another big brand like Marvel, where we are a licensee of Marvel. So of course we work very closely with Marvel and Disney, but they are also a powerhouse in their own right and have a lot of resources available to them on that end. So that informs some of the marketing. But I think if I were to reflect back on those instances, which are more kid focused brands, that's kind of a good foundation you need because as a fellow collector, right, you don't want to get too up in your head about designing products only for yourselves, or letting your own biases affect a lot of the strategies you want to pursue. So it's good to keep an open mind and consider the kid consumer as well. Like, yeah, we know that there are some kids who collect legends too, whether they do it on their own or whether they are introduced to it by a parent or an older sibling or someone of that fact. But trying to make sure you're addressing as many consumers as possible. While yes, it is a collector focused brand, but we had to bring up the next generation behind us.
I can tell you from experience. So Dave and I,
Yeah,
our cousin's son,
I was
hit,
just about to say the same thing.
yeah, his collection rivals mine for sure. And I mean, he is bashing them together and burying them in dirt and really like playing with them the way that kids play with things, and he has an absolute blast with them.
And he does the comic characters and movies as well. So like it's a fair mix between the two.
Yeah, even my 6-year-old, he's been surrounded by Marvel his whole life because I've been, working on the brand, and I think he casually likes the fans, but he found his own thing, over the years, whether it was Thomas the Tank Engine or like Disney Pixar Cars. But now he's coming around finally to Marvel. We're watching more movies together and some of the Disney Plus stuff, and he'll just kind of come up to my third floor here where I kind of been working from home for the past year and a half, where I have all my personal collection, and he'll just kind of stage these battles, and it's really fun watching him pose figures out. I just have to not. I bite my lip when certain accessories go missing or certain things like get mixed up because I'm very, as collectors are, very particular about that kind of stuff. But it's a happy trade off. I'm glad he's getting into more action figure type things as opposed to like little cars, which is a little younger play pattern. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be scoping out the pegs together in a couple of years for the latest figures.
So outside of being a founding member of the Big Three over at Hasbro alongside Dan and Dwight, what does your current role entail?
So I'm going to borrow a little bit from a friend of your pod, Steve Ozer. He actually did, I think, described the role of a global brand manager and marketer, and on these brands like better than I could. So it is, yeah. So like we kind of if as it was described to me once by someone else, like marketing at Hasbro is the center hub of like a wheel, and you've got all these spokes going out. We don't actually control anything directly, but we kind of oversee everything and kind of make sure everyone is aligned. So we work very closely with all the cross-functional teams, design, engineering, model shop, packaging, digital, legal, QA, everything you could think of, and kind of really rally everyone together to deliver, compelling, awesome product on schedule, on time. And then the second part of that is the marketing piece, where we, develop the marketing assets, whether it's, uh, product photos, digital spots, TV commercials if you're more in the kids realm where they still do a lot of television spots, and then now increasingly in this pandemic era, you've seen with the Pulse live streams, the sort of direct to fan marketing, it has been such an important aspect for all the brands, and so we really spearhead that and plan things out and work carefully with the Pulse team. Things like live streams, pre-orders, digital comic cons. So definitely a lot to keep busy. At the end of the week, you're exhausted, but at the same time, you wish you had 2 more days because there were so many things that you wanted to get to and didn't quite get the chance to. But it's been a great ride, and I'm loving every minute of it.
So one of the more interesting facets of marketing for us is the idea of kind of like pitching something, pitching a product, and we know through some conversations offline that you've been a part of quite a few pitch meetings over the years. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the time that you brought a frozen burrito to one of your pitch meetings?
Definitely, yeah. We do get to pitch ideas. It all starts when we want to plan the next year's line or 2 years down the line, and then we need to get kind of internal management. So just as a quick a quick aside, right? A lot of what we do is selling internally before we ever get to talk to you guys, the fans, because we need to make sure that our strategies are sound, things cost out. We check all the business boxes, and then we get to do the really fun stuff, which is reveal the figures, right? But there's all this upfront kind of work and negotiation that has to lead up to that, because we ultimately do need to make products that the regions can sell to the different retailers. So to answer your question, yeah, I've been a part of some fun pitches. I've seen a lot of great pitches from the talented design and marketing teams over the years. But what the example you're referring to is a couple years back, we released these Deadpool Chimichanga collectibles. They were little slug stylized figures, and just very Deadpool. The unboxing experience was meant to be that of a chimichanga, because we know he has a penchant for Mexican food, Tex-Mex food. So yeah, so this was the idea, to go in and say this is an experience, right? We wanted to make the packaging look like a chimichanga, and you open it and there will be little sauce packets on the inside that would have stickers, and you'd have your little figure in there as well. And so we had a meeting in this big conference room, which is called the Tank in Hasbro. It's the biggest conference room. It's where we used to, do all those in-person meetings. And at various points of the years, you would have the executive teams in there. You would have Brian Goldner or John Frascati in there, just sitting front and center, waiting to be wowed. So I got this idea that I should actually get a real life frozen chimichanga and do a skit with it, basically. And I had to drive around and find one. I had to go to several different convenience stores. I think I ended up getting one from like Walgreens or CVS, and then I kept it in the freezer at work for the whole day, and then it got to the afternoon, and then I took it out and just kept it in my pocket. It started thawing a little bit. But yeah, I went into my pitch and I said, "Oh, here's Deadpool. He's one of the most popular characters. He breaks the fourth wall, and we all know he's a fan of, Mexican food." And I had a GIF or a clip from one of the films, and then it was just sitting in my jacket pocket. And then I took it out, for the moment of glory. I opened it. The plastic was a little hard to open, so I think I like perforated it to start with, so I wouldn't be fumbling up there in front of everyone. So then I opened it, and then just kind of gently, but to effect, kind of plopped it down on front of me in the table, and it made that nice sound that you would expect a somewhat frozen chimichanga to make on a hard office table. And then I think it got some laughs, and it was on brand, it was on product, and we ended up making that product. It didn't get as widespread as we would have liked to, for a lot of reasons. The PDQ that the chimichangas came in was very long horizontally,
Mm-hmm.
so it was tough at retail, but I definitely had seen them at GameStop and at other retailers. So that was just a really fun thing that I'll always be able to tell that story, right, of that time. I threw down a frozen chimichanga in front of the chairman of the board, essentially, of the company, and lives to tell the tale.
Yeah, I always think of that story because I have a little Deadpool from that line sitting on a brain with skewered tacos and chimichangas on his on his katanas, and every time I look at that little Deadpool, I think about I literally just picture you just plopping the thud of a semi frozen burrito on a boardroom desk.
One of the things that I kind of pride myself on is in these types of presentations and also in the fan first streams, just to kind of like think of like what is like the craziest thing I could do, that would be funny or entertaining or whatnot. So actually, in addition to just having a frozen chimichanga, I went down to the cafeteria and I got one of those recyclable lunch trays. And then I went to the model shop and I asked Tony or someone of one of Tony's team, could you spray paint this in red for me? And they kind of looked at me sideways and like, why would you want to do this? And it's like, oh, it's for a skit I'm doing. It's like, oh, okay. So they spray painted Deadpool like candy apple red, the lunch tray. And then I went to the cafeteria and they have various beverages, and I found a glass bottle, some kind of cherry soda that was also red. So I had this whole setup. I had a lunch tray, I had a cherry soda, I had a little a paper like sandwich boat like you would get, and then yeah, so that's what I kind of threw the chimichanga on. I really wanted to make it a complete meal experience to sell the idea in.
None of this is surprising.
And all of it is awesome, by the way. So earlier this year, you guys revisited some of the classic MCU characters with the Infinity Saga line. How did you decide the time was right to fill some of those gaps?
Right. So starting in 2018, we had the opportunity to celebrate the Marvel Studios' first 10 years, and we were basically tasked with creating this program for a big campaign that Marvel was celebrating. And so we did a whole bunch of items there, and it's become a regular part of the business where we start the year planning. All right, what's going to be our big celebration or anniversary? It's a place for us to do some higher price point items, to do a bunch of new characters or refreshed characters. So every year, as you guys know, we've had a big fall program. It was the MCU 10th, and then it was the Marvel 80th, which was more of a publishing initiative. And then last year we were able to do something for the X-Men, the Fox X-Men franchise, because it was their 20th anniversary. And now this year is the Infinity Saga. We were in the early planning stages of what our fall campaign would be. We were coming off of San Diego in 2019, the last time we were out there, and that's when they unveiled, Kevin Feige and everyone on stage unveiled the Infinity Saga branding for the first 3 phases. So yeah, we pitched the idea to Marvel and said, look, there's tons of movie characters that we haven't been able to put out that fans have been asking for us constantly. They're characters we would selfishly like to do. Does this make sense as a theme? And then I think they kind of took that back, and it aligned to some of their home entertainment initiatives and the release of Disney Plus, where now all the Infinity Saga pretty much is on available constantly for streaming. So they align to us, and it's one of those things where some of Marvel's other CP partners can jump on as well. And so everyone has been kind of celebrating the Infinity Saga this year, and then we will flash forward to next year, whatever the big celebration to be announced is for that. And the Infinity Saga has been a great program for us, doing things like Ironmonger or that Mark III Iron Man that we've never really had in Legends, or crazy things like Surtur or fan favorites like Quicksilver has been really fun. And yeah, it's been kind of quiet on the MCU front in 2020, right? With no new content really. But everyone is familiar with the Infinity Saga films previously, and hopefully they are enjoying all the offerings that are hitting right about now.
Yeah, the Infinity Saga figures. I'm looking at your baby right here, Quicksilver. It's as a primarily an MCU and kind of film verse collector. It's been awesome to kind of fill some of those gaps. So like to finally have an Ironmonger and really Quicksilver. Those were the two I was kind of most excited for. And then Happy, who is shipping. He is on his way. He'll be here. He'll be here tomorrow. Yeah, I'm really excited, and hopefully this isn't the last time you guys go back and revisit, because there are still obviously some key characters that we haven't yet seen from those early films. So, but speaking of MCU, It is always interesting to see how you guys get these figures out. You know, whether it's going back and filling gaps with a special line like the Infinity Saga line, or like what you did with the Disney Plus wave and the Shang-Chi figures this year, where you had a full wave of MCU, with the Disney Plus wave building the wingsuit, and then kind of mixing in some Shang-Chi figures with that Mr. Hyde Build-A-Figure wave. How do you guys determine the balance between having a full film or MCU wave versus mixing it in with a comic wave versus having full comic waves?
Yeah, it's kind of a case by case basis. Going back a couple of years, I want to say almost every wave was like a mix between MCU and comic, and then we had some examples like the second Black Panther wave was all movie. I think the last Endgame wave, the one with the Bro Thor Build-A-Figure, was another all movie wave. So it just kind of depends. For new properties like Shang-Chi, um, which was Shang-Chi and Black Widow were separate cases too because the films were supposed to come out earlier. We developed the product earlier and the movies got pushed back. But back when we were developing that Shang-Chi wave, it's just kind of going through the reference and seeing which characters we had reference for, which character of the plot that we were able to hear, and what's important, like why is Death Dealer important or whatever. Like you knew you're going to have Wenwu and Shang-Chi and then Xiaoling, his sister, I believe it is. Looking forward to Shang-Chi, by the way. Yeah, I think we probably for that case didn't have the best reference to do a full movie wave. And then also it's kind of the balance of we still want to appeal to comic collectors as well, and we'll never if as long as Dwight and Dan and I and the rest of the team are kind of on the brand, we will continue to advocate for those longtime Legends collectors and to get some comic characters in there. With more and more films and now streaming, there is pressure and expectations to support the studio initiatives, and justifiably so, because those are such big productions, right? They're like each movie is the next biggest thing. The Eternals trailer just dropped recently, so everyone's getting excited for that. But yeah, trying to maintain that balance where we can, and that's how you get a Mr. Hyde Build-A-Figure. Does it make sense in the world of Shang-Chi MCU? Maybe not, but it's a cool figure, and hopefully fans, the comic fans, would go out and get him.
Yeah, and it's always fun. Like I have a friend of the pod and good friend of ours who works at a local comic shop at Craig's Stuff. He's not really a movie collector; he is a comic collector. So like we have this cool symbiotic relationship where he got all of my Mr. Hyde Build-A-Figure pieces, and we kind of just trade stuff back and forth. It's good to have a comic first buddy.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good setup.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
So, I mean, I guess another question would be just kind of what determines what a wave will be like. When we had the recent X-Men wave, what kind of goes into that planning, and do you ever see it kind of going out of like comic books and MCU into some of maybe older TV stuff, or like I know the Marvel Lucha Libre thing exists. Like, do you ever see those kind of coming into play?
I think for us, the big focuses are our MCU movie and a little bit of video game. You've seen some things from like the Spider-Man PS4, the Miles game sequel, things like the big Avengers console game from a couple years ago. Those other kind of niche areas of like old school Marvel TV or other things, they're all technically possible, but just the reality is sometimes there's additional business considerations where we would have to cut, separate deals, which is fine, and we've done those in the past for certain items, but it's just a lot kind of more work, and we often don't have the bandwidth to do that. I think we will when it makes sense to. In terms of how the waves are determined, it's just a constant negotiation, and both amongst internally of our team and then also working with our partners, Marvel, and by proxy the studio and what they would like to see. So we try to make as many people happy as possible. Scheduling is a big point too. We have to hit certain dates, for retail. So it's all kind of this very complicated equation. It's that, is it Always Sunny in Philadelphia, that meme where it's like, drawing the lines and all the things on the board. That's basically our life day to day. Every week we have a design call with Jesse, and it's like, all right, let's talk about this wave. We thought we had it settled, but someone wants to see something different. So how can we make this happen? And then at a certain point, we do need to cut it off and go into sculpting and cut tools on it. But it's never a dull moment, and it's kind of an art as well as a science, I'd say.
Yeah, and we learned from when we had Tony on the show, some of the then the conversation goes into the kind of engineering of things where it's like, well, you want this, but we can't do it, or how do we do this thing that we've never done before? And he mentioned the kind of friendly wrist slapping that goes on during the process.
Yeah, I don't know if are you guys like big sports fans, or do you follow any?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so I'm like a big NBA fan, and I was thinking of an analogy, and it's like I just laugh when we see all these comments where it's like, or message board posts, and it's like, here's the wave you guys should do, and it's like all unique characters, all different body types. It'd be like, for the NBA, it's like, oh, here's my like starting five that I would want to pick without regards to things like salary cap or free agency or, real world constraints. Because, do you want to like, yeah, it would be great if LeBron, KD, and like, Giannis and everyone was on the same team. But like, is that really helpful discussion? Because it cannot happen ever. Not even in the Olympics, right? Because all these players now, there's so many who are international. Not every good player is even American these days. So like that doesn't even work. So I just kind of chuckle when we see those. But it's good. It's good that fans are passionate and so eager to share their ideas. We do love them. It's just kind of there's other factors that go into it that I don't know if they understand, or maybe they don't even appreciate it. But yeah.
Listen, and every now and then you guys do come to the plate with something like that. Like I was making the joke on Instagram yesterday, actually, that this month has been a month of just like massive action figures. Because I was looking at one point at my desk, and it was like, I have Ironmonger, I have Surtur, both completely new sculpt, like from the ground up on both of those figures. And then like King Shark and Violator from McFarlane Toys, and it's just like sometimes they do give us really big stuff that we've been asking for a long time. So
yeah, I mean, nothing makes us happier when we get to deliver a brand new sculpt, something on the level of that Ironmonger or a Surtur. You just have to balance. Not everything can be that, unfortunately, as much as we would love to. So that's where you get some countermeasures, right, in the Infinity Saga program, such as the Infinity War Captain America, which is some reuse, but also some new important head sculpts as well. Things like that.
Yeah.
So one of our favorite lines, and definitely one of my favorite lines, is the 3 3/4 retro line. And it's been fun to see the releases just keep on coming. When we had Steve Evans on earlier in the year, he mentioned that the line exists around that early 80s time period, that real kind of Kenner heyday time period. As the line grows, are there plans to give more modern characters the retro treatment, or are we going to stay in that kind of early 80s time period?
Yeah, so thank you for your kind words about that line. I will like talk with anyone about this line forever, just because it was such a labor of love, honestly, to get it off the ground. I worked closely with Tony at the time, who was pitching in for Marvel Design, and then Ben and the packaging team. It's been such a relief and a joy to see that it's resonating with certain fans. The line will continue. We've had four waves for 2021, so there will be more in 2022 for sure. Stay tuned. I think we'll probably be doing some reveals soon now, as we're kind of getting into the back half of the year. But to your question, Dave, about modern characters in that look, that is something that we knew we wanted to do at some point, and we'll have to find the right area. It was kind of a thought experiment, this line. You've got because you've got the Kenner purists out there who are like, this doesn't make sense because Kenner didn't have the Marvel license, and we have to kind of say, no, like that's not the point. This is kind of a hypothetical thing, right? We're paying homage to the Kenner brand and all the things they've done with Star Wars, because Kenner is inherently Hasbro. We're able to put that logo on the pack, and it is this kind of fun what if. What if Kenner made Marvel toys in the early 80s, as Steve described? Would love to see some modern characters in that aesthetic, but we couldn't really launch with modern characters and old school designs because I think that would have been even more confusing for people. So we've tried to keep, that first year and probably, the next coming waves to those traditional characters who were running wild in the 80s, that time frame. But I would love to get to like a Deadpool on that card is kind of a no-brainer. You could have some really good fun with him as he breaks the fourth wall on the packaging. And then there's a lot of new modern characters who have been created since then who would look great on this, right? From like we've had talks about Miles Morales, Jane Foster, Thor, characters who would really love to get to as well. So time will tell on that, but we'll continue churning out the retro-inspired characters for the time being.
Yeah, like for me, I immediately thought of the Secret Wars figures when I had a kid, or when I was a kid. Jeez. Um, yeah. So I thought of those, and Eric, please leave that in. And
You got it, Uncle Dave.
so I immediately thought of the Secret Wars ones, and like it didn't matter that Kenner didn't make those because, like you were saying, you guys made a your own version of an issue of What If before the show came out. So it's what if Kenner made these and what would they be? And they've just been for me outstanding. Like it's down to the packaging, like it hits me in the retro feels where exactly what I'm looking for with something like this. So yeah, I mean, like any character in this size is something that's just like, yeah, let's do it, bring it.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gamble. Some fans have asked, well, why didn't you just do like the Toy Biz 5-inch scale or the Mattel Secret Wars style, like which predated the Toy Biz 90s line. And I think we wanted to venture out and just try something a little more outside of the box, for better or for worse. I think it has turned out well. We have seen in Star Wars and Marvel doing the retro carded styled 6-inch figures have been very popular because both Kenner Star Wars and Hasbro Star Wars, as well as Marvel, has had such iconic looks over the years. I'm staring at my Gambit and Rogue, and there's a Captain America right next to them, and then there's the Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four behind me. So those in 6-inch have worked really well. So even though those people were like, oh well, those figures were never highly articulated 6-inch figures, it's like, yeah, we get it, but we're trying to strike that balance of nostalgia.
Yeah, and I would, personally, I would love to see the 3 3/4 line grow into like rides and play sets and stuff. Like thinking about how cool, like a Ghost Rider would be with like a retro style motorcycle, or like the Fantastic Car, even like that 3 3/4 inch scale. I feel like gives you guys so many options to where you can go to kind of grow the line outside of just the figure offering.
Yeah, we'd love to get to that point too. Once the world is established, right? We have enough characters kind of there. Um, you know, I've pitched Thanos Copter repeatedly, and it appearing in the Loki show as a kind of a live action version, but as a nod back to that comic kind of panel, that silliness. That'll only help my pitch moving forward. But yeah, like I've been a fan of the Super 7 reaction line going back to the very early days when it was like the first movie characters that they released, and now they've really grown that. And I dabble in that too. I have the Ninja Turtles and a couple of the Transformers from that line, and it's just so evocative. And it's like when you hold that blister card in your hand and there's the blister there and you see the figure, it just kind of immediately transports you back to your childhood, even though it's not a one-for-one recreation, but it kind of brings you back. It's that familiar space, right?
Yep. And nostalgia, man. I mean, regardless of what industry, business, whatever you're in, nostalgia sells. Whether you're, rolling back the Fruit Loops box to the way that it did, even in like the early 90s, or whether it's a soft drink or an action figure or a movie poster. I mean, that nostalgic aspect of things. I mean, we all like to think back to the times when we were kids, and I feel like you guys are definitely capturing it with that line, and like you said, some of the other card art, that you're doing for the larger figures.
Yeah, and when immediately when you mentioned those, I thought of like the Toy Biz with Captain America with the shield, with like the projectile shield, and Punisher with like you could put the roll of caps in the back of him, and he had the cap gun type of thing.
Yep.
Like that's just it's the retro packaging is 1,000,000% doing exactly what you could have ever hoped for, and the fact that it's just like bringing these memories back.
Some fan asked a while ago, "Are you guys going to do a Punisher on the retro card with the caps again?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if that passes the old age grade anymore, right? For a 4+, but yeah, we'll have the memories forever for playing with those cap gun type figures.
So, from some of the smallest offerings currently at Hasbro to the largest ever Marvel Legend, tell us about how you guys decided to bring Galactus to life.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but like when we were evaluating how to launch HasLab with Marvel, there were the two obvious options to us, Galactus and the Sentinel. And then I think we decided to do the Sentinel first because last year was, again, that X-Men, the heavy X-Men themed year. So the crowdfund took place in that same year as we were going heavy on comic and studio X-Men. And also, yeah, we're X-Men fans, and I think there was a troop builder aspect we were excited to explore right off the bat. We weren't being patient. We wanted just to come out with that. And the Sentinel went great. It was a great success. And so it was on to the next one. And Galactus, the timing worked out actually because 2021 is the 60th anniversary of the Fantastic Four. So it's kind of a nice little nod. And then we were able to craft the line around, we had a Fantastic Four retro wave and some variants planned this year, which are up now for pre-order. So it all kind of coalesced in that way. But yeah, those were the first two we wanted to do right out the gate. There's great precedent from Toy Biz having deluxe style playsetty figures almost, and then Toy Biz in their original Legends line, they were amongst the first Build-A-Figures. I believe Galactus was the very first Build-A-Figure, if I have that right. So yeah, it's just kind of a nice nod to that, and yeah, can't wait to have both of them. Honestly, the Sentinel, they sent an email out saying for North America consumers through the Pulse that they would start shipping in mid-September. So can't wait to start seeing everyone's unboxing and video reviews for that. It's really an impressive engineering feat. And then we turn our attention to Galactus. We've got a little bit of time left before he can come on, and we've been answering a lot of questions this past week about Galactus. If you guys have any on that, but just the process of bringing him out. Super important character, obviously, for Marvel, and Dwight and the team did an amazing job of kind of classic Kirby-inspired aesthetics with a more modern design. It's not a Kirby ripoff entirely. There's a lot of modern touches there, but it's got all the great articulation and posability and just the sheer scale of it. When our friend Dave White took those photos to launch the campaign, we gave him that Fantastic Four read, and he was taking pictures of him clawing on Galactus's boot, and you just can kind of see, wait a minute, how big is this thing actually? So yeah, largest Marvel Legends figure ever, most complicated one ever, and hopefully fans will love it when he ships a year from now.
When some of our friends get theirs, I'm definitely going to send them some size 2T clothing. I really want them to just dress. I want them to dress Galactus like a kid from the Walmart section.
I thought about taking a picture because I have a prototype Sentinel at home. I've used for some live streams, and I wanted to put a diaper on him and be like, "This is my baby." But I thought, oh, maybe Marvel wouldn't appreciate me doing that. So I'll figure out some other fun pictures to take. But yeah, I mean it's bigger than the size of a newborn for sure. He's like a little toddler running around.
Now, at the time of this episode airing, listeners will have just about a week left to back the Devourer of Worlds. And outside of Nova and the mysterious, yet familiar Shadow, are there any additional unlocks to look forward to?
Well, yeah, this is kind of a day by day discussion with me and Dan and the Pulse team on what to reveal when. We would love to drive Galactus as high as possible. We do have some kind of tricks in the bag, but I think. And it might just be a personal opinion, but I kind of feel like we are not a typical independent out of the garage Kickstarter. No offense to all those, independent people, but it's like I feel like for those types of projects, the reason why they have a whole menu list of options from $1 down to the very most expensive, tier is because they're trying to drum up as much excitement as possible. Maybe it's something that has never been done before, right? Maybe it's something of their own creation. But when you've got these kind of big players like Marvel and Hasbro, and we have business, constraints and logistical concerns, it's a bit challenging to put out everything at the same time. I don't think that's the best consumer experience necessarily. That's just my opinion. So we're just trying to do it in the way that generates different periods of excitement here and there. Like when this episode airs, right, we're going to have a fan first Thursday event coming. So we might talk some more about some things there, but it's just a constantly evolving process, and we'd love for as many fans who can back Galactus to pull the trigger and get on board. We know it's a sizable investment, and so we appreciate the support. I think the product at the end of the day is definitely going to be worth it. He is humongous, right? We've talked about it, and he's just so impressive, and he's going to be a great centerpiece to any Marvel Comics fans collection.
So we posted a story on Instagram and a tweet and post and everything to collect some questions from the Marvel Legends community, and we have a little bit of a Q&A prepared for you.
All right, sounds good.
Dave, would you like to do the first one?
I would. At Dreadnox asks, with the recent releases of former Build-A-Figure figures like Vulture or Thanos as deluxe standalone releases, what are the chances of some older Build-A-Figures like Fin Fang Foom getting a re-release?
So when we put out Build-A-Figures as kind of deluxe figures, we typically try to do that when there's a notable update to be made. Like we've done with Kingpin is my go-to example. The Kingpin on the oversized retro card. It was different costume, different like ascot piece around the neck there, and it was on a blister card, which was vastly different. We do that for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's if the people or fans coming new or didn't get every single Build-A-Figure piece the first time around, this is their chance to go get it. We want to make collecting as fun and as accessible to people as possible, but we also appreciate the collectors who have the original and want their original to be special, and so we'll never kind of put out the exact same thing as a re-release. There's always some updates made to it. In terms of older figures, I think if we were ever to do a Fin Fang Foom, we'd want a do-over and to make them even bigger, right? Like looking at how we've done Sentinel and Galactus, I don't think that old Fin Fang Foom kind of stands up anymore, and it might honestly not even exist. Like tooling gets scrapped from time to time over the years if it hasn't been used, so our engineer has to constantly check what from the old days, the pre-return of Marvel Legends in 2012, I think, what still exists from before then. Not everything does, but maybe Fin Fang Foom could be a great candidate, I'll say, for a future HasLab.
Friend of the pod, Toy Farce asks, what's your favorite breakfast cereal, 90s cartoon, and window covering?
That's three very interesting questions. For breakfast cereal, I don't know. I'll just pick one at random. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I don't know. Like I probably wouldn't eat much of it today, but as a kid, that was probably one of my faves.
With or without shrimp? That's if you're gonna pick Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Definitely the shellfish free option.
I was gonna applaud
crazy.
the choice, but Erik had to go do that.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that until you brought that up. That was wild. 90s cartoon, boring answer, but like I'd say the X-Men animated series. I would program my mom's like VHS machine for the Saturday mornings and then watch them back over and over again. So that would have to definitely be my favorite. And window coverings, I don't know. Dwight is the master of that. I don't even know. Like when we moved into our new house, there were no window coverings, and so we had to be adults for the first time and actually go buy blinds, and it was an overwhelming experience. So we just settled on whatever kind of style, and we're just going to live with those forever because I don't want to go blind shopping again.
Fun fact, whenever my wife wants to really like get under my skin, she will threaten me with window treatment shopping.
That's effective. That's got to be really effective, right?
I hate it. I to the point where it's like we recently changed our curtains in our bedroom, and I was asked like, "Do you want these or these?" And I was like, "Whatever ones go up faster, and we don't have to have this conversation." I don't know why it bothers me to the length it does, but it is like the worst part of owning a home to me is the window treatments.
Yeah, it's got to be up there, right? That and roofs, from what I hear.
Oh yeah, yeah. Roofing is bad. But thankfully there are people that specialize in roofing and will get up there and take care of it, and I don't have to threaten myself with falling off the roof. So yeah.
And I thank you both for the preparation, just so I know what to look forward to in the future. Um, so this one comes from a few people who all asked basically something resembling the same thing. The backer goals for Galactus are much higher than previous HasLab projects. How did you decide on 14,000 as the funding goal?
Yeah, so we've talked a bit about this in the interviews this week. So just to reiterate that there, the kind of company sponsored answer is if you look at the public comments in the second quarter's earnings report, the executives of Hasbro speak to rising freight costs and input costs that are affecting just the toy industry as a whole, and has a downstream effect on pricing in general. So that's number one. I think there's obviously real world factors. If you open a newspaper or open a news website, there's so many things going on that are affecting all industries. Like if anyone has tried to buy a car recently, I think you have similar shortages of things. So yeah, the Sentinel was developed on its own timeline and its own point in time with shipping, costing, various variables there. And at the time, yeah, 6,000 backers was enough that we needed to get it off the ground. I mean, also, that was the very first HasLab, so we were very eager to have it succeed. It I think, exceeded our expectations, and the speed with which it did so was surprising. And also for Galactus, factors have changed, so that's kind of how we ultimately ended up on that 14,000 backer minimum threshold and a $400 price point. I've spoken to how those two variables are kind of a seesaw, where that if one goes up, the other can go down, and vice versa. So yes, the 14,000 is a lot higher than 6,000. However, at the same time, we were also trying to not have the price point get completely out of whack, right? Galactus is bigger and more complicated than the Sentinel. They both have similar electronics packages and that. So we wanted to kind of keep the increase on price to that $50 level, so 350 to 400, and we were trying our hardest to not have that price point spike up to 500 or north of 500. If it did, then the number of minimum backers would have been lower. But in our minds, once you start going over 400, you start to get over 500, the what's like the pool of people who can actually realistically swing that starts dropping a lot. And at the end of the day, we do want to hit our business goals, but we also want to bring this dream project to as many fans, as many shelves, collections, houses as possible. And it's all kind of factors leading into that. Yeah, that's what I would say. It's very easy for fans to do the simple multiplication, right? 6,000 times 350 does not equal 14,000 times 400. Clearly not. But there's other factors that go into it, and we're doing the best we can. I assure you.
Yeah, and I mean it's evident across the board, right? With like you said, with news, the costs of shipping, the costs of plastic, all of that stuff is readily available to consume. Again, kind of agnostic to industry. So we're seeing price increases, we're seeing shipping delays, we're seeing all of kind of the fallout from the wider news as a whole. So it definitely makes sense. There's there's clearly logic to it.
For those fans who are trying to kind of like, I don't know, assume or project what our intentions were, I would just say that we would love to make for every one of our items, right? We would love to make it as readily available and as as possible. So if we could have done for fewer than 14 easily, and still maintained the price point with where we wanted to be, we would have. But just a lot of variables and factors kind of change year over year, and especially in such a tumultuous world that we live in now. I mean, normally, right, there's inflation increases every year in a normal year of X%. And then also, the factory increases for things like labor. Like these are things that are standard in every year. But given how everything is so out of whack, you've got containers being trapped in canals, for crying out loud, like messing everything up. Like who knows what's around the corner, right? Yeah, we're trying our best. We appreciate those people who have backed it. If people say I would love to, but look, I just really can't. That's too much, for me right now. Then we respect that too. And hopefully, more people, or the most amount of people who can back Galactus will and be happy in the end.
Next one up is from at RT De Silva. Have you guys considered MCU army builders for the Pulse exclusive line like Chitauri Warriors?
Yeah, we've definitely talked about MCU troop builders from the Avengers 1 Chitauri, right? Who were like flying around on those little things with fighting Black Widow in the air. And then you've got all the great new villains we saw in Infinity War and Endgame for Thanos' forces. Those, as we know, would be like all new sculpts. So if and when we do them, they probably wouldn't align with the current Pulse strategy of army builders, which are very comic inspired. Some are new, some are reissued. Your like AIM troopers, your Hydra soldiers, with a few new ones sprinkled in from, including like the Hellfire Guard. But yeah, I think we would definitely consider those. They probably wouldn't be Pulse exclusives. We'd have to make a bigger deal out of it. But yeah, those fit under the umbrella of the Infinity War, right? So at some point down the line, maybe you'll see an Outrider or a Chitauri or what have you.
At Caesar Ruben Castro Lopez asks, do you foresee the return of variants or chases to the Marvel Legends line?
Yeah, so I've actually been thinking about a lot of it about this myself. I keep up to date on what some of the other toy brands are out there doing, some gold label or chase variants, 1 of 5,000 type deals. We have to explore it. I think it's a different day and age now versus when, 10 years ago, where variants would just kind of magically appear on shelves. In a world of e-com where when we're all consumers on ecom and Amazon or what have you, like when you get something and it's not exactly what you wanted, or there's something wrong with it, like it's not a good experience. So we'd have to find the right balance of how to handle the ecom distribution piece of it, because once you start to have two versions of something, someone's going to get what they don't want. They either wanted the chase and didn't get it, or someone might get a chase and not understand that it's a chase and say, why does it not look like the main picture? So that's a challenge. And then also just managing the consumer sentiment. I think on some levels, chase adds excitement to some collectors, but it's really frustrating to some others who really want something and can't get it. They feel like they don't have a chance at ever seeing it at their physical store, and unfortunately the secondary market prices get out of control. So just from my perspective, if we were to do a variant, it would be like not the default look of a character. It would be, a very special kind of look that maybe isn't the most wanted one. So therefore, if there was a smaller supply and you actually, didn't really care too much about that look, then you wouldn't have to worry about killing yourself to get it. So just, yeah, constantly exploring those kinds of things. Early in the Marvel Legends run, this is pre-2014, there were kind of variants or chases back right when it was only Marvel Comics, Comic Legends. But kind of those times are different right now, and just internally the way our systems work, we have to track every single figure uniquely, and they can't share any packaging or item numbers or things like that. So that becomes a challenge, but we shall see. I did a little bit of the variant in the Retro 3 3/4 line when we released the foil 2-pack. And so you might see a little bit more of that in the 3 3/4 line, but no imminent plans in 6-inch, but we will continue to look at it.
So we're going to combine questions from friends of the pod, at Geeky Fresh and at the Great Tonino. We know your love of Marvel for Marvel trading cards. Will we see the current Upper Deck collaboration at GameStop continue? And what is your all-time favorite Marvel trading card?
So the Upper Deck collaboration that was launched this year through a partnership with the GameStop US team. Really enjoyed seeing the fans' surprise and delight to that because it kind of came out of nowhere, right? In an age where every figure is revealed so far ahead in advance. Um, that'll depend on kind of our U.S. marketing. Whether the GameStop program continues will depend on our U.S. marketing and how they want to work with the GameStop account. But I think it was a great relationship builder with Upper Deck, and you know me, like as a trading card super fan, I would love to get cards into the product. There's because Hasbro, right, is a master toy license for Marvel. Hasbro can't do things in other categories like T-shirts or trading cards because there are those partners, right, who have those rights. So that's why brands like Transformers can throw in effectively a trading card, but some of the other partner brands can't. But if we were to work through Upper Deck, who are the official licensed partner, maybe there's potential. So not promising anything. I have some, exploration to do there. But the good news is that at least on the through via the GameStop deal, the teams were able to knock one out of the park there, and so there's a track record for success to build on potentially. For the second question, at the Great Tonino, he's an awesome follow. I recommend everyone go follow him. Uh, yeah. What's my favorite all time card? I don't know. Tough to say. Um, I think my favorite set of all time is the 1992 X-Men Impel Series 1 with the Magneto teal box and the Wolverine purple box. So pretty much anything out of that set is just the best, and I love it. And my my fantasy is to, at some point when I have the time to go around and do this, is to try to build as much of a complete set of that series card with the Toy Biz symbol on the back, because you'll remember, right, when those cards were packed in with Toy Biz, they were special printed and they actually had kind of a Toy Biz watermark on the back. So I wonder if it's even possible to go and get a complete set, not including the holograms. I don't think the holograms are done like that, but like the base set, with all Toy Biz on the back. That would be a dream project of mine sometime.
I got to imagine it's going to be tough to find those things in good shape.
I'd have to just buy the toys probably to
Yeah.
guarantee so when I go, I go back and get a bunch of those Toy Biz figures because I like to tie them into our marketing, like right when we do the Fantastic Four or like the Gambit and Rogue, and I'm clicking on the eBay links and I'm like zooming in and I'm trying to determine which card is behind them. Sometimes you can definitely tell, sometimes you can't, and I have definitely made a purchase decision based on what card is with the figure, packed in with the figure, of course.
There you
go.
I Two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
I liked how that X-Men series 2 had those you could put a couple cards together and get like a diorama.
Yeah, that was the Danger Room. It was like the nine pocket page Danger Room set. That was the first time I had ever seen that in a trading card set, and then they ended up doing that for like the Spider-Man set a couple years back, and then one of the Marvel Universe. I think it was series 4 with the Silver Surfer. Like the whole set was done in nine card layouts. So yeah, super awesome.
And the last question here for our Q&A comes from at Janie J. Lou. And she asks, if your son and your Sentinel fell over or got hurt at the same time, who would you check on first?
This is a great hypothetical question that definitely didn't happen last week. But yeah, I mean, I would first determine, based on my son's cries and whining, whether there was a serious injury or not. If there was a serious injury, would clearly tend to him first. But if I hypothetically determined that he was going to be okay and it was maybe just a startling surprise for him, I would probably run over and pretend like the Sentinel was a baby and ask the Sentinel if he was okay, and then check on my son, who I knew was okay. That's probably how I would play it out. But,
probably.
Yeah. Yeah. My son loves to come up here and pose the figures out now. And the way he considers like playing with it is kind of standing them all up. And he's really proud when he can stand a figure up, because some of the figures are hard, like especially the female figures are kind of challenging sometimes
Yeah.
with the balance in that. So he loves to stand things up. And then, I later in the day go look in the other room, and there's like 25 figures all standing around in a circle. It's pretty cute. And I'm glad he's playing with figures.
I'm glad my daughter's not the only one that does that, because I will oftentimes. So I'm working on the second floor, and my daughter will be downstairs playing, on the first floor, and oftentimes I'll open the door, leading out of the attic space here, and I'll hear that it hit something, and I'll see like a domino effect of me knocking over, a series of like 10 action figures that she's lined up on the floor. Oftentimes they are all in line waiting to get into the princess castle in her room, but they will be queued up as if they were at Disney World, from basically her room almost into the living room. So
That's awesome.
I don't know what it is about it, but these kids like standing things up.
I've seen it and I love it.
And Ryan, with that, you've survived the Q&A, man. That's it.
Oh, that wasn't that painful. That was good.
So before we let you go, we do have one last question for you, and I'm going to hand it over to Dave, as he is the James Lipton of this podcast, and he closes us out with the final question.
Yes, the final question. It's the final question that we ask to all of our guests. What is the strangest and or favorite piece in your collection? It could be one of each. It can be both.
So I was thinking about this. I know that this is the way to close out the podcast. So yeah, I mean, there's answers where you could have like a prototype figure or a figure that never shipped or something. Like that could be one answer. Another answer could be like it's something really valuable, right? You have a Gem Mint 10 something or other sealed right away, which you don't really have as much. So my answer, kind of a unique spin on it, is I have, and it might not be surprising, but like when I played with Legos as a kid, I liked building things and like never taking them apart, because once it was built, like I would want to keep it like that. If it was something I made, I was very proud of it. I never wanted to disrupt it. So, when my parents were moving out of their house years back, and I was going through a bunch of all of my old toys that I wanted to keep, obviously I wanted to keep everything. I came across this Lego spaceship that I built, and must have been very young, and it's just made from a mix and mash of random pieces. There's like some very old Lego space characters. There's some figures from like a medieval set. It's just a complete mix and mash, but I was super proud of it at the time, and I always kept it intact all these years. And I'm actually staring at it right now. I have it still. We'll never take it apart, and I don't know. It's something that I made. It's something that reminds me what it was like to be a kid. It's something that evokes a certain level of joy just when I look at it. So yeah, that'll be my answer. It's just this random kind of worthless Lego thing that a little kid made, but I've kept it together for over, gosh, probably well over 30 years at this point, and it's just kind of a nice reminder and a nice perspective for me.
Well, it's not worthless to us, Ryan. You're gonna have to send us a
for sure.
picture so
That's
that way
really
we can.
cool.
So
Oh
we can
yeah,
share.
yeah, I will. It's it's funny. It's like it's not even like well constructed. Like it's just whatever random colored pieces. Like I didn't even think the effort to like, oh, maybe I should make them like I should hunt out all the gray pieces so it like looks cohesive. But it is symmetrical, and it's got two seats for kind of a driver and then like kind of a gunner guy or someone in the back. And so yeah, I'll take a pic and send that around.
Awesome. Well, with that, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Adventures in Collecting. Please let our listeners know where can they find you on social media, and where can they hear about all of the fun new Hasbro stuff.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram a little bit here and there at Ryan_Ting. And then I'm also on Twitter, although I'm not nowhere near as good as Twitter as Dan Yoon is, but I am also on the Twitter there, also at Ryan_Ting. So I'll post, I won't really post like reveals there. People love to hunt my pictures and see, hints at new things, but I definitely prefer to have the Hasbro Pulse and the official channels for new reveals. So what I like to do is just post kind of in hand stuff of figures that are already revealed, just to give a greater look at things, or snapshots from my personal collection. And then also the Hasbro Pulse, that's where we do all of our official marketing. And Marvel the Marvel Legends fans are great on the Pulse, so keep that up. We want to strive to be the #1 Hasbro Pulse brand, so we don't want to give up that championship belt anytime soon. But yeah, that's about it for me. I appreciate you guys. Thank you again for carving out time, during the day to record, for my benefit. So I appreciate that, and keep up the good work. You guys have a really awesome podcast. I honestly mean that. I listened to a bunch of them. Very insightful questions, clearly very knowledgeable and passionate collectors, and that's what it's all about. So appreciate you guys, and I will be listening to all future episodes.
Oh, well, thanks again, Ryan. And
Thank
guys,
you, Ryan.
make sure to check out Ryan and the other 2 members of the Big Three. If you're listening to this episode the day it goes live, on August 26th, which is this Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, there will be a live stream with potentially more news and reveals. So make sure you check out Ryan and the team there. Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azzari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer, Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.
Okay, so if you don't already know, Kohl's is the best kept secret for back to school shopping. My daughter's heading off to college, and I got a great deal on a bedding set for her dorm, which she absolutely loves. Picked up some pillows for $11.99 and got her new jeans for just $21.99. I mean, whoa. With prices like that, you can't say no. Did I mention I got Kohl's Cash and it was ready for pickup in less than an hour? So, yeah, I'd say it was a success. Select styles. Prices good 8/18 to 8/22/2021. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
With MailChimp, you get a whole lot more than a URL. You get an all-in-one marketing platform to help drive sales. That means you can connect your data to make more informed, smarter decisions, and you get powerful automation tools like our Customer Journey Builder to ensure you never miss an opportunity to turn shoppers into loyal customers. So if you're ready to integrate your marketing and boost sales, get started today at MailChimp.com/smartmarketing. MailChimp, built for growing businesses.